Would you please join us in a salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is the state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2016 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2015, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Adams? Here. Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mr. Larrier? Here. Mr. Lembrick?
Here. Good night, CSC.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas the desire of this governing body to comply with the provision of this act, at the same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 19th meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. This evening, we're going to start off our meeting with a proclamation for Arbor Day. Deputy Mayor Adams is going to do that. Then we'll have our first public comment session. After that, we have an ordinance on final passage, which is our bond ordinance. Then we have an ordinance which is on introduction. It's a new ordinance, and that's to amend the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area 2. We have another new ordinance on introduction, and that is to require properties owned by corporations and limited liability companies and partnerships to supply additional information or a certificate of continued use. And lastly, we have a third ordinance on introduction, which is an ordinance authorizing $411,000 to fund the reassessment. We then have our municipal budget hearing, and we'll open that up. And if anyone would like to express their comments on the budget, we'll welcome you at that time. We then will have a resolution to read the budget by title. We'll have a resolution to amend the budget, and then we'll have a resolution to adopt the budget. After that, we'll have a discussion about outdoor cafes. We'll have another item is sports equipment, and lastly, we'll be discussing the age of cigarette purchasing, changing the age from 19 to 21. We have a consent agenda. We have 9 items. Contract to PSE&G to put some poles in at the Woodland. We're going to be approving bills and claims. Finalizing some jobs at the Hilton Library, cancellation and appropriations reserves, refund of overpayments, and then approval of minutes. Then we'll have our second public comment period. We'll have reports from departments. We received it from the Chief Financial Officer. And then we have administrative reports from elected officials, and then we will adjourn. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick update on something that was discussed at our last meeting regarding the unfortunate instance when the medical care was not provided in a timely fashion to a young person in town. We did discuss this at the Public Safety Committee meeting. We did see that there may have been a bit of a glitch in the process in that our dispatcher had called South Orange. Now this incident occurred at 3:30 in the afternoon, and the dispatcher called South Orange Rescue Squad but South Orange Rescue Squad really doesn't cover us until 6 p.m. So we now have made it clear to our dispatcher that from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday, our secondary ambulance will be from Monarch, not South Orange Rescue Squad. So it could have been upwards of 5 to 6 minutes that we ended up being delayed because of that call there. We will continue to work with South Orange Rescue Squad as our backup, and that will be Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and Saturday and Sunday, 24 hours. But during the day, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we've made it now clear to our dispatcher that Monarch is going to be our backup when our ambulance is busy or our firefighters are out on another call, a fire call or other type of call. We have some more things we're going to be doing with this, but I just want to let you know that we have talked about it. We're still reviewing the various protocols. I did receive an email from our dispatch REMS with a report of the incident from their perspective and a willingness to meet, and we'll probably do that. And I have received calls from 2 other people in town who had a similar instance in which the response was delayed. And one thing that we also became aware of in this particular instance was the first 911 call, the caller hung up after reporting the instance. And I think what we were going to do is to do an education program to urge people when they do call 911 is to stay on the line, because oftentimes that is the means of communication as to the severity of the incident with the dispatcher. There are certain questions that get answered by the person on the scene that when the call is disconnected, the dispatcher is at a disadvantage. So we're going to, because some of us have never called 911 in our lives, so you just don't know what to do. You call and you think, okay, I'm done. But we want to make sure folks are aware of better practices to stay on the line. But in this instance, that was not the major issue. The major issue was this other glitch that we found. Yes?
The other part of that incident that bothered me, or that I thought maybe could be looked into, and since I'm not on public safety, I wasn't there to raise it, but would there have been a possibility, since the REMS goes through their procedures, that in this particular case, someone, whether it was the police who responded or someone locally, could have contacted the fire department to send a truck up with the fire department personnel who are EMS certified?
Yeah, we looked at that, and that still may be something that we come out with, but and Mrs. Larry is much better informed than I on this, but our first aid squad, our fire officers, when they come out, they are there for basic life, BLS, basic life service. What ultimately happened was they called the advanced life service, correct? What we were told was when the police officer got to the scene, the police officer administered oxygen, and that would have been what the fire department would have done anyway.
Yeah.
So in that instance, the police officers are the first respondents, and generally for basic life service, is that basic life service?
Basic life support.
Support, I'm sorry, support. Basic life support. That's what they would have done primarily anyway, right?
Also, just to point out, we did talk about what would have happened. Maybe someone local could have called the fire department. And I think that's what Ms. Adams was saying. Perhaps someone else could have called the fire department while REMS was going through their protocol. The problem that we have with that, and this was confirmed by Chief Dingelstadt, once the fire department is dispatched, be it if we changed our protocols and said that a police officer could randomly call the fire department. Now you have REMS calling someone out, you have the fire department out. Once they're dispatched, once they're on scene, they have to stay there. They're not allowed to just pick up and leave. So that then ties them up. It's better to have one coordinator, REMS, following their protocol as opposed to people sort of butting into the system, for lack of a better term.
I think he used it.
And yes, we did have the example of if while the fire department had been called out by a police officer, someone had a heart attack, well, now there's nobody for them because ALS is on the way, BLS is on the way, no one's going
To a third call.
to a third call. Thank you.
But we have some more to do on this, but I just want to let people know that we did immediately when we heard about this, we made the decision with the chief, Dingelstadt, is to inform REMS that Monarch is going to be our secondary support during the daytime. Okay. With that, we're going to now move to proclamations. No, you can just read it from there.
Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our township increases the property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor of Victor Luca, Mayor of Township of Maplewood, we do hereby proclaim April 29th as Arbor Day in the Township of Maplewood, and we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, we urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generation. Dated this day, 19th day of April in the year 2016.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Adams has been the strong tree person here, so it was appropriate for you to read that. Thank you. We're now going to move to public comment on agenda items or in general. And our favorite Deborah Collins is here.
As opposed to another Deborah Collins?
well-
My favorite and only.
She's
But thank you.
prolific.
There was a
take it.
comment. There was
I'll
a
take
comment there. Our favorite Deborah Collins.
Oh.
Okay. Good evening. So good to see you all again. For the record, I'm Deborah Collins, Director of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action for the County of Essex. And next month, I will be the Deputy County Administrator on top of all that. I think I'm getting rid of one of those positions. You heard me, Joe. But
You're not losing anything?
I may be losing one piece of it, 1/3.
Okay.
So that's still under discussion, but I will preside at the first board meeting of the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders next Wednesday, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Good, congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
But you won't be losing us, though.
No.
Okay.
Not for the moment, for the
Okay.
time being anyway. Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm excited. It's a great opportunity and I'm grateful for it. But before I get to this evening's announcements, I'd like to circle back to an issue that was raised on March 4th, the last time I appeared before this board. And it was in response to the condition of the road at Valley between Tuscan and Baker. And I just want to make sure that there was, in fact, the appropriate response. I received word from the Public Works Department that, quote, the small section of the road there is in bad shape, slightly bad shape due to drainage issues. We cannot mill and pave that section as it is very small. However, what they said that they would do is to come up with a bit of a patch job in the summer, and in the meantime, fix the potholes. So I'm just checking in to make sure that something's been done.
Well, I think the potholes are fixed. There's no holes there. It's just very bumpy. So as soon as they can come in with the patch, I think it would be good.
Okay, great. I'll get back to them on that. Okay, now,
Thank you
My
for doing,
pleasure.
for following up.
pleasure. So this Thursday, April 21st, from 10 a.m. to noon, the Office of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action is presenting a workshop entitled, Does Your Website Work? We are going to have an expert analyze the websites of the attendees to literally tell you whether or not they're too content rich, or on whether or not your hyperlinks are working, and what you can do, in fact, to increase traffic to the website. The program is free, registration is required, and we have a few slots left. So if anyone is interested in attending, please do call our office before close of business tomorrow at 973-621-2011. That's 973-621-2011. And I've left copies of this invitation with the clerk. Next, Saturday, May 7th, the sacred day, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. is Essex County's Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. As most of our citizens know, that takes place at 125 Fairview Avenue, next to the old hospital center in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. There are flyers as well with the items that will be accepted, so I'll not go through all of them. Spare you that. And then on Saturday, May 21st, from 9 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., it's Computer and Electronics Recycling Day in the County of Essex, same location, 125 Fairview Avenue, next to the old hospital center, etc. If anyone would like to call for information, in addition to what's already been provided, please call 973-792-9060, 973-792-9060. These are our announcements for the evening. Are there any questions or concerns?
Can you tell us about the giraffe?
Everybody wants to know about.
Well, I think we
the-
have some people on this side over here that are dying to go.
Yes, we have 4, and they've all been named. We're not going to have a naming contest. They came to us with names, so apparently they recognize who they are. So we're going to continue to call them by their given names, and we're all pretty excited about it. They're getting acclimated now to their new surroundings, so our zookeeper is very concerned about not having them out too soon. But as soon as we have a press conference, and we will, I will send you a special invitation so that you may come. I'm sure the county executive will have his granddaughter there, and there'll be lots of other children. So if you'd like to bring your young ones, do so.
Deborah,
Excited.
the invitation that we got for May 10th, is that the grand opening, or is that?
Well, we have a couple of things going on, and I'm not sure about the May 10th date because we're also opening the Savannah Cafe. Did you get that invitation as well?
Yes.
We have a
We have
press
that, that's on
conference,
April
which is
28th.
fabulous, just fabulous. So I don't have that in my head, but I'll get that out to you to make sure that you don't miss it.
Okay, great.
That's exciting as well. You want to come out for the Savannah Cafe opening. It's beautiful.
I think that's next week, right?
Yes.
It says the 28th? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congrats.
Yeah. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee at this time? Okay, we'll close that. We'll move on to our ordinances. The first is an ordinance on final passage.
Mayor, item 7, ordinance on final passage. Ordinance number 2808-16, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements of the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating the aggregate amount of $3,720,708 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,974,222 in bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance, our bond ordinance for 2016? Seeing no one, will close the hearing. And I will move this ordinance be adopted as a whole, and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrecht?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have an ordinance on introduction.
Item 8, Mayor, ordinance on introduction 2809-16, an ordinance adopting and amending redevelopment plan for redesignated redevelopment area number 2. This ordinance will further amend and supplement the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area 2.
I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and the hearing to be held on May 17th, 2016.
Second.
The reason it's going to be held in May, the second meeting, is because it has to go to the planning board. And that'll be on May 10th. Is there any discussion of this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrecht?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. The next two ordinances, I'm going to ask Mrs. Larrier if she would move them, and Mr. Brownlee, if you would second those.
Item 9, Mayor, introduction to new ordinance, ordinance 2810-16, an ordinance to amend Chapter 204 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Transfer of Property. This ordinance will require that properties owned by corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships supply additional information when making an application for a certificate of continued use.
Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on its first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on May 3rd.
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion on this?
I just think it's a great idea. Because people, they hide behind this stuff. You can't get in touch. You don't even know who somebody is. So it's great. So I'm glad to support this one.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrecht?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have another ordinance on introduction.
Item 10, Mayor, introduction of new ordinance, ordinance 2812-16, ordinance authorizing a special emergency appropriation in the amount of $411,000 to fund certain extraordinary expenses incurred by a reassessment of all properties within the township in compliance with the mandate of the Essex County Board of Taxation in and by the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey.
Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on its first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on May 3rd.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrecht?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, next we're going to move into the budget. I think we're doing a little musical chairs here.
We have our role play too, right, don't we?
I don't know.
Or what?
Don't we have our little role play thing?
Yes. Yeah, there is a script
which has been edited.
edited. It's a new one this year. It's brought it up to the 20th or 19th century, maybe.
There was one on your, looking at all the papers that were.
Here's another one.
I have more.
I don't think so. Is there one that has specific names, just the one you gave me, right?
That's the only
Okay,
one.
all right. So we need a resolution to read the budget by title first, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'll move that resolution to read the budget by title.
Second.
Or do we need to do the hearing first?
Mayor, I
Sorry.
just wanted to mention that that was a resolution on the agenda, resolution number 101-16, to read the budget by title.
Okay, so let me just add before I do that, because I want to make sure, because we have a budget hearing before that. Do we do the hearing before the resolution?
No.
Doesn't make a difference? Okay. So let's move ahead, since we have moved and seconded, to read the resolution by title.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's now go into the script for the budget hearing.
Mayor, this is the time fixed for the public hearing on the 2016 municipal budget. The budget was approved by the governing body on March 15, 2016, was advertised as required by law on April 7, 2016, together with notice of hearing time for this time. Printed copies have been made available to the public during the past week, and the supply is here for anyone desiring a copy.
So anyone who would like to get a copy of the budget, we have it up here if you want to get a copy. And we'll give you about a minute to read it, and then we'll do the hearing.
Take this, that, and that.
You might want to start as you're walking back. I'll start reading.
Okay, so Mayor, we
So
already.
we're, this script is wrong because we've already done the resolution,
I was just gonna
so.
say, Mayor?
Yeah,
we've
so,
already
okay,
done
here we
the
go.
resolution.
Before opening this hearing, I wish to outline the procedure. Each person desiring to be heard will come up to the mic, give us your name and address, and again, we're asking questions on the budget. This is the municipal budget, so the school and county matters, their budget is really not germane here. And so with that, I'll declare the time open for the public hearing on the 2016 municipal budget. Anyone want to speak on the budget?
Crowd at once.
Okay. Seeing no one, we will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Is there a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Clerk, I think you're up.
Thank you. Mayor, I have a resolution amending the municipal budget for the year 2016, and that's a resolution read by title, resolution to amend budget, and that is resolution number 93-16.
Okay, before we start, I just got a text, somebody says that Channel 35 is not,
That is correct.
okay,
What is correct?
it's not going out on
No,
Channel 35?
We have a problem, and we are going out with Verizon Fios and our streaming.
Okay, so if somebody can go on their computer and watch this live stream
On YouTube
on you,
or
okay.
on the website? Both.
Okay, so they can go on to, okay, so if somebody has Comcast and can't hear us anyway, they can still go to their website. So if somebody goes to the website, they'll be able to find out how to hook up, okay. And this doesn't affect Fios, Fios is okay?
Fios is okay.
Okay. Okay, so, I'm
So
sorry, so,
Comcast doesn't have the Yankees or us?
right,
Right.
right, yeah. Right.
It's early in the season.
Right, okay. Okay, so we need someone to move the motion, is that correct?
Move the resolution.
Move the
number
resolution?
93-16.
Right.
I'll move that.
Oh, sorry, that's you. Sir,
What?
it says VD.
No, no.
I'll move it.
Yes, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, please call the roll on amending the municipal budget.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, the resolution is adopted. Ms.
Okay.
Fritzen, you're up.
Mayor, I will read Section 2, the adopting resolution for the 2016 budget. And that's Section 2, which is on your agenda, Resolution Number 94-16. Section 2, upon adoption of the year 2016, be it resolved by the governing body of the Township of Maplewood, County of Essex, that the budget hereinbefore set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated in the sums therein set forth as appropriations and authorizations.
Get a motion of approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the budget? So we're voting to move the budget as adopted? As amended, thank you.
Correct.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larry?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrecht?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. So the 2016 budget has been adopted. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wasn't that bad, right? When Joe Facone is here, we keep him here for an hour.
I know.
We ask him every
Thank you
detail.
very much.
Okay, we have 3 discussion items. The first is outdoor cafe. If you remember at our last meeting, we agreed to change the question of ownership approval, and Mr. Desiderio was authorized to present to us an amended ordinance, and he's done that. We also agreed to remove the section that had to do with 10 square feet of space. And subsequent to that amendment, or subsequent to that draft that Mr. Desiderio sent out, we received a correspondence from our code official, our building official, saying that he suggests we not delete that 10-foot requirement. There was some indication, 10 square foot requirement per person requirement. There was some discussion on the part of the Township Committee as to whether or not they wanted to go along with Mr. Mittermeier's recommendation. So rather than put it on for introduction tonight and having to publish it and pay for that, we put it on for discussion so that we could discuss it and be clear about what we want to do. And therefore, when we do adopt it, we won't be paying twice to publicize it. So let's first off, is there anyone who has any difficulty with how Mr. Desiderio dealt with the ownership issue of the building?
Nope.
Okay. So the second would be the 10 square foot. Do you want to speak to this, Ms. Adams?
Well, first on the ownership issue.
Yes.
I mean, I have no problem with the way Mr. Desiderio did it. Have we set up, or how would we set up a procedure to determine for each of the proprietors that may want to have an outdoor cafe? Do we have to get a survey done? How do we determine who owns the land that they're going to have the proposed outdoor seating in?
What would you recommend?
Yeah, I would suggest that they, when they submit their application, that's the best way to do this. You know what, if it's referred to me as it is to other department heads, I'll do an investigation and try to make a determination as to where it is, and I'll take responsibility for that, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so on the second item of 10 square foot.
Excuse me, and that would be only in an instance where the owner's consent is not affixed,
Is not what?
is not accompanying the application.
Okay.
If the owner's consent is accompanying the application, then it obviously doesn't need to come to me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no,
that-
because
that
if
is
the
true.
owner is us, well, then it doesn't matter,
That
right? Because
doesn't
it's going to come to us anyway, right?
Right.
Okay. The 10 square foot.
Yeah.
Adams, you want to speak to that?
I understand our construction code officials' hesitation and his reasons based on his email. However, my understanding, my belief is that those restrictions are for interior building code requirements. And therefore, along with the 4 feet of clearance we require on sidewalks with regard to outdoor cafes, I think it's, I have no huge objection to keeping it in there. I just think it's a little redundant and doesn't really apply to outdoor space, but rather inside the building, thus being the building code. So I disagree with Mr. Mittermeier on this issue, but if it's not really going to have an adverse impact in the ability for these businesses to put out adequate seating with enough room and with the 4 feet of clearance. then I'd be fine keeping it in if it's not going to make it, difficult for businesses to use the outdoor space.
I mean, I haven't heard that it's caused any problems thus far. I mean, and it's been in there. Do you mind if I speak next?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I read Mr. Mittermeier's email, and and he explained that inside it's 15 feet required, outside it's actually reduced to 10. So I think to some extent that takes into account the difference between the indoor and the outdoor seating. And in the absence, for me, I sort of similar logic, but on the other side of the coin. I think, if it's not broke, there's no reason to fix it. And I found Mr. Mittermeier's email persuasive, and I see no reason to change it. So my vote would be to keep it in. That being said, I don't feel strongly enough about it that I would vote against the ordinance on that basis, but my preference would be to keep it in.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, I too was persuaded by Mr. Mittermeier's email, and then we actually had a subsequent conversation about it in our code meeting, and something else that he did bring up is without that distance, that space requirement, you then depending on your proprietor, there could be the possibility of just cramming as many tables and seats in there as you can, thereby making no passageway and no space in between, and that would be a problem. And as Mr. Lembrick said, I go with, if it's not broken, we haven't had a problem with it so far.
Okay. I think since Ms. Adams is willing to let it stay in, and the other two members of the Township Committee feel that it should stay in, I think we should just keep it in.
Okay. We look at the last section?
Yes.
So the first change is going to stay, the second change is going to come out, and then we just have that third indemnification provision.
And in the interpretive statement, you're going to have to take out that B there.
Yes, I will.
So the other thing is just that the licensee is responsible for the sidewalk.
Yeah, for any damage.
Right. Yeah, that was fine.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay?
Then that's
So we'll
fine.
put it on for introduction at the next meeting.
Yes.
So, we can't assume that it is going to get approved, but if you have any inquiries, Ms. Fritzen, you can let them know that we'll be discussing it in May.
Right, we're proceeding. I have 3 applicants already, and I'm having the areas checked.
Okay.
And 2 out of the 3, I do have landlord permission from. So, we're proceeding.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Good.
Okay, sports equipment. Mrs. Larrier.
Yes, this is the time when the weather gets better and we get requests or we get desire to put basketball hoops out in the berm. And we did come up with an ordinance about that. I believe we said that you could not have basketball equipment out on the curbside between December 1st and April 1st. We did receive an inquiry about that, and we, in fact, I believe we were invited to come and tell someone's child that they couldn't play basketball on a nice day. Well, in fact, we did have a conversation about this in our code meeting, and we have a recommendation for the Township Committee, and that would be to back up the start date, excuse me, to back up the start date of basketball equipment being out to the first day of spring. That would be March 20th, I believe, or 22nd. 21st. Okay, we'll split the difference. March 21st through December 1st we would allow basketball equipment. That backs it up about 10 days
November 30th.
November 30th, yes. As of December 1st, they have to be gone. So the first day of spring, March 21st through November 30th. So that's our recommendation from the code committee. And what say you?
Any reaction?
I mean, I think that seems like a reasonable compromise. I take the point of people who've said that, if it's March 15th and it's a beautiful day, why can't we put the basketball hoop out? And I hear that, but at the same time, we have to have rules and, it's not as though these things can get put out on March 15th, and if the weather turns cold, are going to get put away right away. I think once they're out, they tend to be out. So I think that's reasonable. And obviously, we've had times where we've had snow in October and November, and we've had times when there's snow later in March, and we can deal with that as it comes up. But I think this is a reasonable accommodation to the citizens who would like it to the season for basketball to be expanded, and I would be inclined to support this.
Anyone else want to comment? So this would be the basketball berm ordinance?
The basketball berm ordinance? Yes, we have to
Feeling the
amend.
berm,
We have
feeling
to
the berm, you
amend, we
missed
have
it.
to amend the basketball.
Yes.
berm
Got it.
So
ordinance.
Mr. Desiderio, you got the,
I got it.
okay. Feeling the berm.
Yeah, we get it.
Okay. Next up, speaking of feeling the berm, changing the age to purchase cigarettes and e-cigarettes from 19 years to 21 years. So we started this conversation back about a month ago, and there was, or maybe even a little longer, and then subsequently we had a representative from GASP come and speak to us, and there were some concerns raised about the impact on local businesses, and we said we'd reach out to the business community to try to get their thoughts on the matter. I did two things. I asked the Chamber of Commerce to talk, our Maplewood Chamber of Commerce, to talk about it. Their board met on March 9th. This was one of the items that they did talk about. They came to the conclusion that the chamber has no problem with the change of the cigarette purchasing age. I then contacted the New Jersey Food Council, and really I contacted them based on an article that was in the News Record back in on April 7th, in which the president of the Food Council was quoted. And I contacted them and asked if they would want to attend. They could not attend tonight, but they did ask if they could send a letter and have that letter read into the record, and I said that I would do that just for fairness purposes so that everyone hears it and the public hears it. So I'm going to read that into the record, and then at that point, the Township Committee can discuss what they would like to do, if anything, as their next step. Okay? So this was, we received this yesterday, April 18th. And this is from the Food Council. On behalf of the New Jersey Food Council, a trade association representing food retailers, including supermarkets, independent grocers, and convenience stores, and their supplier partners, we appreciate the opportunity to convey our strong opposition to a proposal the Township is considering, which prohibits retailers from selling tobacco and electronic smoking devices to persons under the age of 21. We respectfully request that you reconsider passing this ordinance. The Food Council opposes this restriction because it would limit which adult consumers can use these products and would result in lost sales for retailers. In addition to the direct revenue loss, this restriction would impact ancillary sales from customers who purchase additional items when they shop for tobacco products. The adult customer who can no longer purchase tobacco products in Maplewood may no longer patronize his favorite local retailer who then loses the sale of not just the tobacco product, but coffee, a sandwich, or other items. A young adult will just take this business over the town line. This is a significant loss for Maplewood food retail members who typically operate on slim margins of 1 or 2%. In New Jersey, there has been an unprecedented amount of consolidation within the food industry, and traditional food retailers and convenience stores are struggling to remain vibrant and competitive. You have witnessed this in your own town, as A&P has gone out of business. This type of legislation undermines the business model and could drive these sales to neighboring towns. While we have yet to see a specific ordinance proposal, penalties typically only fall on the retailer and not the adult consumer. Hawaii recently raised their smoking age to 21, and adults who violate the new law are subject to financial penalties and community service. Maplewood is now following a trend of these ordinances in various New Jersey municipalities. Some of our members have hundreds of locations throughout New Jersey. It is very difficult and expensive for retailers to comply with a patchwork of local tobacco laws. This past year, the FDA tasked the Institute of Medicine to undertake a study of public health implications of raising the minimum age of these sales. The FDA will be submitting a report to Congress, and we suggest that Maplewood wait for the federal government to complete its work on this issue before proceeding. Thank you again for considering the views of the New Jersey Food Council. If we can provide additional information about this issue, please contact us. And this is signed by Linda Dougherty, the New Jersey Food Council President. So we have heard both sides now, strong opinions on both sides. And let's see what the interest of the Township Committee is. If we were to move forward, basically it would require 3 of us agreeing to instruct Mr. Desiderio to draft an ordinance for consideration at our next meeting. And I think we would put it on for discussion first. Or maybe not. I think maybe we just put it on and decide if we want to introduce it, yeah, if we were to do that. So the floor is open. If anyone would like to start off the discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
I know that Mr. Rowe has distributed some information, and there's been some discussion about whether we would talk about smokeless tobacco and e-cigarettes and vaping, and would that be part of the current discussion, or would that be a separate discussion leading to a separate ordinance?
I think it could be both. I think there could be, if there was an agreement to raise the purchase age for tobacco, it would be for e-cigarettes too. Then I think there was a second question of whether we should regulate e-cigarettes like we do tobacco. And I think that's would be a separate ordinance and a separate discussion.
Okay, because yeah, I was thinking of the issue of registration for businesses that want to do that. I think I agree. I think that would be a separate ordinance because it's. And the only thing I would say with respect to that is I do think registration and regulation is appropriate for those products, but there are some communities, it's been brought to our attention, that have basically sought to make the fee for the license to register that so high as to basically discourage businesses from selling the products. And I do think that's something that would be a step too far for me, I think, to regulate it, to make them register is one thing, but I think that the fee to do that should be appropriate and consistent with our administrative costs, not meant to be punitive or prohibitive. And that's my thought on that. My thought, while I have the floor, on the proposed ordinance to raise the age, as I've expressed before, and I'll say again, it's a difficult issue for me because 2 things that I place a great deal of value on are sort of in conflict. One is public health, and particularly the public responsibility that comes from individual health choices. the increased costs of insurance and healthcare that we all bear because of tobacco, and personal liberty. Allowing people who are adults, 19 and 20-year-olds, to make the choice and have the same ability to make choices that people 21 and above have. And my view that it's somewhat arbitrary where we're drawing these lines, particularly because most of the studies on alcohol and tobacco and the health impacts, actually show that, people start much younger than 19 or 18 or 21. And that responsible choices on these matters are not really made until people are much older, in their, well into their 20s. On balance, I actually think that, even though we'd be one municipality and maybe creating an island where other municipalities around us have, keep the tobacco age at 19, I think we can be a leader on this issue. I'm certainly okay with us being a leader on other issues. I see no reason why we can't do it here. And on balance, I'm inclined to support this, and I would certainly vote to have the ordinance brought up so it can be discussed as part of a public hearing when we propose the ordinance and hear what the community has to say about this. So I certainly support moving forward with drawing up the ordinance and bringing it up for first reading at the next meeting. And beyond that, I can't promise that I will vote for it, but I'm inclined as we sit here tonight.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, I think I was initially opposed to raising the age for purchasing. The difference, and what I've been thinking about it since it was first raised, and I agree with Mr. Lembrick's points to personal liberty and making choices for your own as adults. However, I think the difference in this one is the ability for older teens to purchase cigarettes because they can pass for 19, whereas it's more difficult to pass for 21. So I think raising it will hopefully lessen the numbers of 14 and 15-year-olds being able to purchase cigarettes. So I've changed my view on this just based on that alone, just to try to keep it out of the younger kids' hands. Not that they won't have other ways to get it, but at least they hopefully will need to. And I'm not swayed too much by the letter that the mayor read and that we received earlier today with regard to the difficulty in enforcing it because they're in different municipalities, have different laws. I don't think it's all that complicated. So I would tend to support raising it to 21.
Ms. Larrier?
I would agree with my colleagues. I'm not persuaded by the Food Council's letter, mostly because I don't believe that when the age was raised to 19, when the 19 age limit was put in place, we pretty much heard the same thing, that there would be businesses that would be irreparably harmed, and we really didn't see that happen. They also mentioned that we should wait for studies. Well, there have been studies done already, which already prove that when teens start smoking, they tend to have, some of them, lifelong habits and lifelong illnesses. The instances of nicotine delivery increases substantially in high school. And to Ms. Adams' point, it's far more easy for a 16 or 17-year-old to pass for 19 than it is for them to pass for 21. And as the Food Council points out, more and more towns are adopting this ordinance or ordinances similar to it. And so it won't, my vision is that it's not a patchwork around the state, that pretty much at some point, the entire state will be 21. And then you won't be able to just go over the border and buy cigarettes. You won't be able to have to worry about, is this ordinance here or is that ordinance there? It should be across the state, across the board, 21. I am certainly in favor of including e-cigarettes in that, because my feeling is any nicotine delivery is detrimental to this age group. And as far as registering, I think absolutely, to Mr. Lembrick's point, it's always better to try to keep a handle on that, and registration, I think, is the way to do it.
Brownlee, would you like to add anything?
Yes. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, as I've said previously, I have no problem opposing something that is of no human benefit. I'm unpersuaded by the arguments of those who oppose raising the age from 19 to 21. The only rationale that I've heard for not doing this is that it'll hurt the profitability of some businesses, essentially their ability to make an extra buck by selling cigarettes to young adults under the age of 21. The New Jersey Food Council, in the letter that you wrote, they lament, you know, things like revenue loss and ancillary sales, you know, very nice, fancy, aseptic terms. I guess that they would say that the effect on the health of 19 and 20-year-olds would be collateral damage. And so I'm sorry, but I'm just not sympathetic to the argument that we're denying someone the right to profit off of the chemical dependence of another. To me, that's like excusing the drug dealer, because after all, they're just trying to make a living. And make no mistake about it, nicotine is a drug, and a very addictive one at that. A couple quotes: the National Institute on Drug Abuse says that the cigarette is a very efficient and highly engineered drug delivery system. That's the National Institute on Drug Abuse. The Center for Disease Control says that nicotine dependence is the most common form of chemical dependence in the United States, and research suggests that nicotine is as addictive as heroin, cocaine, or alcohol. I'm therefore in strong support of raising the age to 21, and I would include e-cigarettes in my opinion as well.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the reason I raised this a while back was because I did think this was a leadership moment, and I do think that that we ought to take a position. We ought to increase the age to 21. The thing we shouldn't forget is that the New Jersey legislature passed a bill, a bipartisan bill. Mm-hmm. It went to the governor's desk, and the governor vetoed it and never issued a veto message. We don't know why it was vetoed by him. I think we can guess, but you know, there are a lot of limits on our behavior because we act in the public interest. You know, a few years ago, we didn't have to wear seatbelts, and now we do. A few years ago, you could smoke in a ballpark at a game, or you could go to a concert and smoke, or you could go in an airport. No more, because we've recognized that there's a need to protect the public health. And here, the facts are overwhelming. That if you know, the earlier the age you allow someone legally to buy, it does trickle down to a younger age, which 15 to 17, all the statistics show, it will get to that age group. And I think if we can increase it and eliminate that opportunity, we're doing the right thing. I guess the one thing I would say, what I am persuaded about in the Food Council's letter is and I've spoken to a couple of individual retailers in town, and their concern is, and I think it's reflected in this letter, is that people will walk. They'll go to the next town. I don't think that's the reason not to pass it, but I do think it's the reason that we ought to continue to advocate as a governing body that there needs to be a statewide law for this. Because I do think, and I guess what I'm disappointed in the Food Council is if you oppose the municipalities doing it one by one, then why not embrace having a state law to do it and put everybody on an equal level. So in any event, I'm very much in favor of this. But I do think what I'd like to suggest is we pass this, or we bring it to an ordinance, an introduction, hear from what people have to say, and then we give it a final consideration. And at that time, we also send that ordinance to our elected officials at the state level and the governor and ask them to reconsider it on a statewide basis. Yes.
I would also point out, I understand you're taking into account what they've said about people walking and going to the next town, but keep in mind, this ordinance, the only people who would have to walk and go to the next town are your 19 and your 20-year-olds.
Right.
So your 21 to 91-year-olds who are buying sandwiches and buying sodas and buying chips along with their cigarettes and their e-cigarettes will still continue to do so. So I would point out that the majority of their clients, of their customers, will still be coming and buying the ancillary products, the products that are ancillary to cigarettes. They're really only losing 19 and 20-year-olds, and I would question what percentage of their clientele falls into that.
But I think a statewide law would eliminate that altogether.
Would eliminate that altogether.
So,
Another point I would make, following up on Ms. Larrier's, is that, I mean, just looking at the demographics of Maplewood, and this is something that I looked at quite a bit last year as part of the campaign, we don't have that many 19 and 20-year-old year-round residents. I mean, South Orange, because of Seton Hall, has a lot, and it's not that we don't have any, but you know, the 19 and 20-year-olds make up a very small percentage of Maplewood's permanent residents. And to go back to Ms. Adams' point, Deputy Mayor Adams' point, there's a much greater danger of 18-year-olds and younger getting those cigarettes because they pass for it. They look older than they are, or the retailers just don't bother to check, and passing them on to even younger friends, classmates. And I'll just echo what others have said, that I found the letter from the Food Council unpersuasive. I particularly thought their suggestion that we should wait for the federal government to do something to be almost laughable. I mean, basically, when someone says, let's wait for the federal government, I translate that as saying wait forever and do nothing. So I'm not persuaded by their arguments. I really think the only thing I hesitate is on the personal liberty issue, and I'm willing to get over that given the very clear evidence about the health costs, the human costs and the financial costs associated with teen smoking.
So do you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just, understanding the question of personal liberty, but I actually hadn't considered one of the remarks that the mayor made, though, in terms of, we used to be able to drive in cars without seatbelts. Why must I put on my seatbelt? If I choose to ride in a car without a seatbelt, why shouldn't I have the right to do that? So there are certainly precedents to, I guess to your point, it's sort of protecting people from themselves. But I guess I see this in a similar vein. Again, there's simply no, in my mind, upside to smoking a cigarette. So I guess I see it in the light of that remark, and I hadn't actually considered that angle before.
And Mr. Rowling, not to argue when we're otherwise agreeing, but I guess the difference that I would see here is we're creating two different classes of adults. Is that the seatbelt laws weren't, if you're between a certain age, if you're between 18 and 25, you have to wear a seatbelt. I guess what bothers me about this is that it's a law for 19 and 20-year-olds that seems, to deprive them of something we're already depriving 18-year-olds of, which is, they're adults in the legal sense, but not in this sense. So that's the only distinction I would draw on personal liberty. But like I said, I think we're otherwise on the same page in terms of whether you have that objection as I do or you don't, as you do not, still thinking that the benefits here outweigh that argument.
I don't want to belabor the point, but just out of curiosity, and I don't know, again, things, the age in which you can drive a car, I don't know if is there one number for that nationwide?
No.
Yes.
Depends on the state.
Even in this state, you have less ability at 17 than you do at 18.
Okay, so there are, I mean, I'm sure I could find other examples where there's difference in gradations, and I understand you say, well, yeah, but those are all underage as opposed to adults or something like that. But I just feel that there are, even in those cases, precedents for distinctions, if you will, between different class citizens. Now, I'm not a constitutional scholar, obviously, but I'm fine with it.
Mr. Lindbergh, I think you raised a good point about the personal liberties, because I did see some comments when this first came up about, if you're 18, you can vote, you can join the service and all that. But somewhere along the line, the state of New Jersey made a decision, and the federal government too, made a decision to, let's just say the state of New Jersey made a decision to move the age for buying cigarettes from 18 to 19. So there's precedent already based, I would assume, on some public health issue to move it off of the age of majority, which would be 18, to make it 19. So I think you're right, we're now putting 20-year-olds into that. I think there's plenty of precedent here, and I think it makes sense to do it. So, and I think we're all in agreement here. So Mr. Desiderio, are you clear about what we'd like to do?
I understand. I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
I'm looking at a template from the Princeton Board of Health, which struck me as probably the best one, but it defines, and I don't know if you want to go this far, no person shall sell tobacco or nicotine delivery products, which I take to be e-cigarettes, snuff, all of the chewless tobacco, etc. Are you inclined to go that far?
I would be.
I see nods of heads on my left, and I am looking for generally across the board is what we're looking for.
I say yes.
Yes?
I would vote for
I mean,
that.
it seems to be consistent with.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm voting for one kind, I'm voting for it all.
All right. It also requires that someone has to show, at least between the ages of 21 and 26, effectively a driver's license or some other form of.
That's a state law.
Well, but we're imposing it for the difference between 19 and 21.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
All right.
We can't go lower than 26 showing ID.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
The second thing is, where do you want to go on fines? This says first offense $250, second offense $500, third offense not less than $1,000. I mean, are you so inclined to go that high? That's my question.
Mr. Desiderio, on that issue, can you just specify the fine would be of the retailer?
Well, that's the way this is drawn.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm
I really
that.
hadn't even thought about it, other than the letter from the Food Association, which actually talked about fining the individual trying to make the purchase. Okay, but generally speaking, we are licensing a retailer, and that's who we generally fine.
Right. And I'm okay with that. And I guess what I would just ask, and this is, for probably, for better that I'm not intimately familiar with what the fines are for, for underage drinking and such in this town. But how do those fines stack up with, say, a retailer who's selling alcoholic beverages to someone under 21? Are they, because I wouldn't want them to be higher
Well, one of the things that happens with the ABC is that they actually can, I would have to check on what those numbers are. I don't know off the top of my head. But in addition to which, the ABC can close them down for those violations. So, I'm inclined to I'll check on it. I just don't know off the top of my head. But we can check on that. I mean,
But what were the fines for selling to an individual under 19?
That's a fair question,
That's a good
too.
question. Okay.
Why don't we just keep it consistent?
I
Okay.
would keep it
Yeah,
consistent with that.
Okay.
I just want to be consistent with Maplewood. I don't want to take a rule in Princeton,
No.
whole hog, and then have it be inconsistent with something else in Maplewood. So I just want to know that background.
Are we not just amending an existing ordinance?
Change the
Could
age,
we
Yeah, I
not
think
do
we
that?
are.
just to change the age.
No, I think because we have a state, was a state law.
Because it's state law, so we
So we're
wouldn't have,
introducing a new ordinance.
it would
We're
be
introducing a new
completely new.
Okay.
We have an ordinance banning the vending machines, okay, already, but I don't believe that we've been relying on the state ordinance.
Yeah, I guess I would share Mr. Lembrick's
Princeton.
question just to make sure that the numbers that we have are in line with, on the same order of magnitude at least, as similar infractions for selling alcohol to underage.
Okay, I'll check.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I'm fine with them being at that level or higher or lower. I just want them to be consistent.
Okay. All right, those were really my questions.
So just so we're clear, in this ordinance, a nicotine delivery product includes e-cigarettes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Just so we're clear, that's the definition.
or at least I wanted to if it doesn't.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand it to be that, and it talks about, chewless tobacco, smokeless tobacco, I'm
Yes.
sorry, et cetera, so,
Yep.
okay, got it.
Okay. Anything else, anyone? All right, so we'll put this on for introduction on May 3rd. And then there'll be a public hearing on May 17th.
Good job.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our discussion items for this evening. Can I get a motion on the consent
Mayor,
agenda?
Excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting you. The 17th is fine, but Mr. Rowe would normally not be here. I don't know, would you want him to be here for the final?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, I mean, I think actually, I think it's more important to have him here
For introduction.
for introduction.
Right. And let him go on the record as in favor of it.
I would welcome I'm grateful that my colleagues came over to the light side.
Right.
So,
I was going to make a joke, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, consent agenda. Consent agenda.
We're always there, Mr. Brownlee.
All right, let's go. Okay.
I'd like to move adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we're at our second public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee? Just give us your name and address, please.
Mike Summersgill, 804 Prospect Street. So just wanted to follow up on two items. The first one being the dispensing of feminine hygiene products in the public bathrooms. I know we discussed that in March, but I wanted to have an update from the committee as far as where we landed on that.
And what's your second item? We'll give you that.
Sure. The second item is I saw that the Maplewood Department of Health issued a bulletin on the Zika virus, particularly borne by mosquitoes. And the bulletin was pretty much focused on what citizens of the town could do for prevention. I was interested in knowing what the town was going to do as far as mosquito mitigation, suppression. I suspect that it will be a hot button item at some point during the summer, and then maybe a run on resources to do any kind of municipal-wide training, supplies, use an outside contractor. So I'd like to see us be in front of that issue, especially with Maplewood being a place where people come to start families or grow their family. This is an important issue to many people in the community. And by the time we realize we're wrong, it's really too late. And so I'd like to know what the committee at least is thinking about doing about that. And hopefully we can get some proactive measures done on that issue.
Okay. So on the first item on the feminine products, I know Mrs. Larrier has been in communication with someone who can give us some help on that.
Yes.
And can you give us an update of where we are with that?
Well, right now, she has been pretty busy with another issue that she's working on, basically the same issue outside of the state. However, she has agreed to meet with me and our township administrator to try to get this started. So it is certainly on my front burner, and as soon as she is free to help us out, we will be moving forward with that.
And one thing I'll add is that Mr. Summersgill was generous enough to pass on to me some information about a vendor that he was aware of that might be able to supply the hardware, so to speak. And that's something that I meant to pass on to Mrs. Lauer, and I will do that. 'Cause I know
And if you
Mrs.
could give it to Mr. Manning too.
Okay,
They
so
can look at that.
I'll give it to Mr. Manning and Mrs. Lauer, because either they're taking the lead on this issue, and I thank Mr. Summersgill for passing on that information.
Thank
And
you.
Mr. Manning, can you talk about the Zika virus?
Yes, our health officer, Mr. Rowe, excuse me, has been working very closely with Essex County Mosquito Commission, Essex County Office of Emergency Management. We, as a township, do not spray for mosquitoes. That's a county function, and they do that, and they will be doing that as we get into mosquito season. Mr. Rowe plans an education program for people in terms of their own property and avoiding nesting places, stagnant water situations. He will also has been instructing all of our code enforcement officers when they go out, and employees in general, if they go out and they are on people's property and they see stagnant water, to tip it. So that's what we're doing right now. More education will be coming out as he develops along the program, but the spraying and how that's going to be done is really a function of Essex County Mosquito Commission.
And Mr. Rowe will work with them if we find any areas of town where we have some concern. He will bring the
Yes.
Mosquito Commission in.
Yes, which we have always done. Every year, there are patches of town which seem to have a larger growth of mosquitoes population, and we call them, they come, they spray.
I also do believe that at the March Board of Health meeting, we got confirmation from Ms. Collins that the county is absolutely geared up and ready to mosquito mitigation.
Yes, my recollection is that Mr. Rowe raised the possibility,
issue.
of whether the county or the town was prepared, and Ms. Collins gave a very thorough.
Yes.
Very direct.
Yes, yeah, to confirm that the county is very much on top of the situation. So, but I mean, it is an important issue, and like you said, as the weather's getting warmer and getting into the summer months, that's something that everyone, both at the county and the town level, is going to have to keep an eye on, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position, as some other areas have gotten into, where we have a health crisis.
Thank you.
True. Okay, is that it? Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, we're going to close that. Reports from departments. I don't remember getting this report. Did anyone get this financial debt instrument and required certificate of determination and award?
It's in the,
Mr. Uribe had said that it was supposed to be on the last agenda, so I believe that you did receive it. But he asked me to include it in tonight's agenda.
yeah, it was he sold notes, and there was a report.
We got a report of the bond from Moody's?
Yeah, no, that's just our financial.
No, we didn't get that. So if you can make sure we get
Sure,
that. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Manning, we're up to administrative reports.
Yeah, I just have one item, and that is that the Township Committee has been notified by the Superior Officers Association of the Maplewood Police Department, Local 44A, of a grievance that has surfaced having to do with overtime and the obtaining of overtime and the scheduling of overtime. You have been provided with backup information. You have been advised about, your role and what you need to do in terms of, are you going to, I need permission now to know what you want to do. If you want to have a public hearing on the situation there, and what it basically is that there's a difference between the Superior Officers Association members and the Maplewood Police Chief.
Right. So there's been a grievance.
Yes.
And it has gone to the chief, and now it has gone to us, so we have to decide if we want to move, action we want to take.
Correct.
Is there a motion?
You have several options.
Yes.
One of those is that you can have a hearing, and the second option is that you can do a paper review of the grievance. You've all been furnished with complete documentation, including the grievance, the chief's decision, et cetera. So you need to, A, make a determination of how you want to proceed, and then let us know if you're going to
I
proceed.
think we're ready to do a motion.
Okay.
I would move that we do the paper review and we not have a hearing.
Well, let me just be clear. I believe that we're in a position of, we've already reviewed the
Yes.
grievance, and we're in a position to deny the grievance. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes.
We need a motion to deny
I
the
make a
grievance.
move, I move that we deny the grievance.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
I
Okay.
will report that tomorrow, and that's my report unless you have questions.
Okay.
When do we begin selling fresh fruit on Springfield Avenue?
June 6th, I'm told by Mr. Correa.
Thank
June 6th is going to be our farmers market opening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Desiderio?
Mayor, the only thing I would report is that the reassessment process has been approved by the state of New Jersey, which was required. They have been notified, and I believe that everything will start to get moving forward on or about May 1st, so that they can be done for the October 1 deadline. So I think we will move along, and they've assured us that they will complete it in that regard. And once again, I would just ask that, and it will be certainly publicized, but it is really in every resident's best interest to allow for an inspection, because if you don't allow for an inspection, then they have to estimate, and invariably that creates problems with the record. So hopefully people will cooperate.
I've been asked several times, and I think I know the answer, but I just want confirmation. Those evaluating the property values will be going to each house in Maplewood,
Yes, it's a 100,
inside and out,
I'm sorry.
inside and out.
Yes, it's there will be notification, and hopefully they'll get access to the inside. Obviously, they can't get that without the owner's permission. But the intent of this is it's a 100% reassessment. So yes, they would like to get into every home.
Okay,
That's all I have, Mayor.
thank you. Ms. Fritzen?
My only thing, Mayor, would be that we will work towards correcting the Comcast issue. I'm sorry for that. Work on that tomorrow.
Thank you. Time for elected officials. Ms. Adams?
Starting with me today. It's just random, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Keeps everybody on their toes.
We had Engineering and Public Works Planning Committee meeting. We had a couple of guests at our meeting this past, when was that, April 7th. We had representatives from the Historic Preservation Commission who are asking for the township to create a conservancy for Memorial Park. We had discussion on this issue. Memorial Park is designated as a state historic site. They will come up with a draft regarding the structure of such a conservancy, nonprofit status, potential board, relationship to the township, and goals and objectives to be presented during our June meeting of Engineering and Public Works and Planning. We also discussed a jitney stop to be added near the Avalon Bay site at the former PSE&G site. And discussions will be forthcoming between the mayor and that developer with regard to contribution toward that additional service. We discussed tree replenishment, of course. Leaf removal, we continued discussion on doing a pilot program in one section of the town of bagging leaves as opposed to just putting them out at the curb. That is still under discussion. It hasn't been set yet, and we'll announce that when that happens. So we've repaired 243 potholes. So everybody, if you have a pothole, you should let us know. Contact DPW. I just want to make sure we have other things. Traffic calming, we have obtained the pedestrian, stop for pedestrian and crosswalk signs that will be going up on Ridgewood Road. They've been ordered. I don't think they've been received yet. Let's see, one. I think that's it, unless you can remind me of something. I mean, there's plenty of other things, but not necessarily for, and of course, we'll be still working on the leaf blower and pesticide issue, and that's a subcommittee that Mr. Lembrick and I will be working with volunteers from the environmental category, but that's my report.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brownlee?
I have no report.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes, just two things. When the code committee met, we did discuss our leaf ordinance for the registration of, well, actually, it's not just the leaf ordinance, but in Maplewood, landscapers must be registered. And at this point, our code officials are going out with a list of registered landscapers, and if they find a landscaper who is not registered, they will be told to cease and desist and go register right away. They may not continue, they may not pass go, don't cut another
Do they
blade
get
of grass.
fined? When do they get fined for not being registered? When are they able? After the March 1st or when their deadline
I
was?
believe
or-
after March, well, as of March 1st, they have to be registered.
Right, but there
I
were,
think they're getting warning, or getting told to stop and go register now. They can be ticketed now, but they're
Yeah.
being told to register now. I think
because I've personally turned in about 20. So there's about 40 that are registered now.
it might be even more because they have sent some people.
Yeah, no, I
And they
know.
were out Saturday.
I sent
So our-
2 in this morning.
Our code people went out.
You see them everywhere. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's
I
okay.
just wanted
No,
to know when
that's
we
good.
could find them, so.
So they're told to cease and stop work right away, go register, and if they don't care to do that or they're not able to do that, they can't continue to work. Additionally, because starting May 1st, we have a noise ordinance that goes into effect for leaf blowers. I know you guys are working on the leaf blowers, but as far as the decibel levels of the leaf blowers, DPW will be supplying our code officials with the specs for leaf blowers. And they will be spot checking the landscaper's equipment. If I see you have ABC leaf blower and I look on my list and it says that that is above the decibels, you're not allowed to use it. They will be told they cannot use that equipment. So we are trying to check that in advance of the May 1st deadline for noise ordinances. Additionally, we discussed the heating code in Maplewood, and we talked to Mr. Mittermeier, and he found that the heating code for the town and the heating code for the board, for the health department are different. And the town's heating code is year-long, 68 degrees in a building. We believe, as opposed to, I think the health department was, in the wintertime, at night, it had 65, and during the day, it was 72 or something like that. We believe that the two should match, And so we will be updating the health department ordinance to match the code of, the building code ordinance, which is 68 degrees year-round. 65 is too cold at night, especially if you work at night and you are up at night. And so, plus just for consistency's
It's
sake.
actually, I'm sorry, it's actually from, the health code says from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. it's 70, and from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. it's 60.
60.
And Mr. Mittermeier made mention of the fact that, you know, people are up at all different hours now, work all different kinds of shifts. People work at home, and that 60 degrees at 11 o'clock is cold, so we're suggesting just make it 68, 24 hours. Right?
I'm actually in bed at
At 9
midnight.
o'clock.
At midnight, and 60 degrees would still be cold for me, so.
Blankets.
Way too much information.
Lots of blankets.
More than I need to know.
Way too much information when we get
I
there.
always,
Is there anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lambert?
I do have a few items. First, I wanted to mention a few upcoming subcommittee meetings. Recreation and Human Services will be Thursday, the 28th. That's next Thursday at 8 a.m. here at Town Hall. The very next day, Friday, the 29th, will be the Communications Subcommittee here at 7:45 a.m. at Town Hall. As Deputy Mayor Adams mentioned, we are finalizing the membership of the subcommittee that's going to be looking into the leaf blowers as well as the cosmetic pesticides, and whether we might want to amend or propose new ordinances to address those issues. And we're certainly recruiting members from the existing Environmental Advisory Committee and Green Team, but if there's community members that are interested in those ideas, please reach out to Deputy Mayor Adams or myself, and we'd like to hear your input, and certainly always looking for volunteers that would like to help with research. Finally, you know, the mayor may address this, but I wanted to take a few moments just to talk about, there was a really productive meeting yesterday, I thought, with local business owners and residents at the Woodland, and the topic of discussion was a very hot topic here in Maplewood these days, which is specifically the prospective tenants at the new building on the post office site, and also more generally, the status and future of commerce in Maplewood Village. There was great attendance, both from merchants, business owners, residents, and I thought it was a really valuable exchange of information and ideas. There's also been a very spirited discussion, both in person and online, throughout the community, and Maplewoodians are very engaged on this issue. I've had the opportunity to talk with many concerned residents about this. One aspect of those conversations that I found particularly useful has been to share information and actually correct some misunderstandings that seem very common about what the existing township ordinances are. A lot of members of the public are under the impression that there is an ordinance in town that prohibits any chains. That is not correct. We do not have a chain ordinance. What we do have, and is often confused for a chain ordinance, is a fast food ordinance, which applies only to certain zones of town, and fast food has a specific definition under that ordinance, which is if the majority of the cooked food that is served and sold at the establishment is prepared prior to being ordered, and it specifies cooked foods. So obviously this is not prohibiting businesses like the Able Baker or Bagel Chateau from selling bagels and salads and baked goods and other things that are not, basically it's a common sense definition. It's, things that you expect to go in and they will already be ready. You're buying something that is relatively fresh, but not being made after you order it. It's not addressed to those businesses. So it's narrower than some people think. Another misconception that people seem to have is that as a general matter, the community or the township committee has a lot of authority to affect the permit approval process for particular potential new businesses. And that is generally not correct. If a business meets the existing codes and ordinances, we can't legally veto it on some other basis, particularly if that reason could be viewed as subjective or arbitrary, or solely meant to protect existing businesses from having to compete. They obviously, bars and liquor stores, liquor businesses are somewhat of an exception to this general rule because the Township Committee, acting as the local ABC, has very broad authority to regulate with respect to liquor licenses, but we do not have that authority with respect to coffee shops and banks and other businesses. As was discussed at yesterday's meeting, and as I'd like to expand on a little bit here tonight, there are legal options to potentially amend existing ordinances or pass new ones that can give Maplewood greater control over the kinds of businesses that come into our town and the village in particular. But we have to keep in mind that there are trade-offs that need to be understood, and we'll need to determine whether we have community buy-in to take those steps. In any event, we have to enact and enforce clear rules that apply generally, and we can't make fresh decisions with respect to each individual potential new business. We can and should have input on making those rules, and the community should share their input on that, but we can't make them up and change them as we go along based on whether people like or don't like an individual proposed business. An example of, just one example, aside from the fast food ordinance, of an existing ordinance we have is an ordinance that currently prohibits nail salons from being located within 500 feet of another nail salon. And one idea that came up yesterday at the meeting was that perhaps we could expand that to other kinds of businesses so we don't see an overconcentration of the same business in the village or in other parts of town, and I think that's something that we can explore. One thing I have been doing just since yesterday with my copious spare time has been to do some research on legal options that may be available to Maplewood, and somewhat surprisingly to me, I did find numerous precedents. What's known commonly as formula business ordinances. I wouldn't say they're common, but there are more than a handful across the country, communities large and small, from Maine to California, everything from large cities like San Francisco to small towns. And for the most part, what they do is they're not applicable to an entire community. They specify certain neighborhoods, historic districts, downtown areas, and find legal ways to define what businesses will not be allowed in those districts in a way that largely does exclude franchises and chain stores. This may or may not be something that would be good for Maplewood, and I'm not committed, as I sit here tonight, to necessarily voting for something like that, although I would consider it. What I will commit to tonight is, that my research is only in the initial stages. I'm going to find out more. I'm going to look at other communities, including Jersey City, which is at least considered that ordinance. I don't know whether it's been passed, and if so, whether it's been challenged. But I'm going to look around, not just New Jersey, but around the country to see what other communities are doing to protect the character and the retail quality of their towns and villages and cities, and report back to this committee, most likely at one of the meetings next month or in June, with what I've found. And as I said, I'm I haven't gotten far enough into this yet to know whether I would support it. And I do know that we'd have to consider that any such change, if we're going to limit the businesses that can move into an area, we're also restricting what those landlords can do and reducing potentially the market for their building and potentially forcing them to accept reduced rents. And that's something that we're going to have to consider the input, not just of citizens, but also of the local businesses and property owners. But this is an issue that's very important here in town. A lot of people came out yesterday, despite the fact that it was an 8:30 a.m. Monday morning meeting, and it was a very impassioned discussion. And I think this is something that the community is going to continue to discuss. And I just want to let everyone know, the mayor, deputy mayor Adams, and I were there yesterday. We heard what the local business owners and the community members were saying. This is an important issue for us. We want what's best for Maplewood. And I welcome people to continue to bring ideas and opinions to us. And this is something that I'm going to personally put a lot of time into looking into what our options might be and looking at the pros and cons of those so I can bring that to my colleagues on the committee. And that is my report.
Thank you. I have 4 items. The first is, after 25 years, today, Mr. Desiderio and Mr. Manning and I met with Duran Hedden, and we're pretty close after 25 years to coming up with an agreement, a mutual agreement on the operation.
Wait, I coughed.
The operation of Duran Hedden. We have no agreement with the Duran Hedden Association. So today we had a very productive meeting. We clarified procedures, accounting responsibilities, and I think we will have something in the next month or so coming to us for approval. I mentioned a couple of a few meetings ago that we had joined with South Orange in putting out an RFP for consultants for fire department consolidation study, or merger, shared service, whatever. We kind of opened it up. It's actually called Analysis of the Operational Efficiencies of and the Feasibility of Consolidation, Merger, and Sharing of South Orange and Maplewood Municipal Fire Protection Services. We've received proposals from 2 firms, one the Matrix Consulting Group in Massachusetts, and the other is the Manitou Incorporated in Peekskill, New York. So one is $44,500 and one is $47,000 roughly. So we have a committee of Mr. Manning, Mr. Brownlee, and myself on our side, and Ms. Collum, Mr. Levinson, and Mr. Lewis on South Orange side will be meeting with these consultants and bringing back a report. Another group of consultants is the library. For the library expansion, we've received 39 responses from architectural firms on a request for qualifications from architects who would like to work on the library. So we have a building committee that's going through these 39 proposals, and the next stage is to interview roughly about 9 or 10, and then select 3. And at that point, we would issue a very detailed request for proposals and have those 3 respond to that. And lastly, just another item that came out of yesterday's meeting was the status of the Historic Preservation Commission in a proposal that has been kicking around for some time around declaring the village of some historical significance. So, Mrs. Larry, if you could follow up with that and get back to us. I don't know when you're meeting, but if you can get back to us.
We meet the first Wednesday of every month.
So you have to get back to us in a month or so.
Right.
Okay, and just let us know where we are with that and if there's anything we can do to kickstart those conversations. Anything else?
Yes, Mayor, I have one thing.
Yes.
I'm sorry, circling back to the smoking ordinance, and I should have mentioned this. Generally, ordinances take effect upon final passage and publication. However, with regard to the smoking ordinance, I would recommend that you delay the effective date for a period of time after publication. This would give Mr. Rowe an opportunity to deal with the merchants and get the appropriate signage, et cetera. So I'm suggesting 60 days. Does that seem reasonable?
Seems reasonable to me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
No ifs, ands, or buts. Oh, okay.
I moved
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We'll see you in May.